Okay. Okay, great. So, Jilly, just first of all, before we start, would you like to just kind of give a brief introduction? Just briefly
Yes.
introduce yourself, say hello.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I can't see anybody apart from you, but that's fine.
Oh,
So it's okay. Don't worry. It's fine. It's fine.
okay.
So my name is Jilly Black, as you've seen. I live in Watford. I've been working for quite a few years. And I had tremendous amount of benefit from joining Work Avenue webinars during the lockdown last year, right into the summer of this year. I've done lots of different things in my working life, and very recently started working in the not-for-profit sector, which was a big change from what I'd been doing before. And obviously I'll answer questions about that. So there you go.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jilly, and thank you again for joining us. So the whole point of this session really is to hear, a lot of you are thinking about transitioning, changing career. So we've set up this session as if you like, a case study of someone that's successfully done that, to explain their story. So I'm going to ask Jilly a series of questions about her career, her early career, and her transition into her most recent career. And hopefully that will provide some insights to all of you. Please obviously feel free to think of questions to ask either myself, the employment team, or indeed Jilly, as we go through, as there will be time at the end of the session to ask questions. And hopefully, Hannah, if you could keep an eye out, and if Laura obviously connects, then we'll bring Laura into the conversation as well. But we'll start with Jilly and see how we get on. So great. So let's start. So Jilly, could you talk us through your early career in sales? Give us a bit of an insight into how you got into that and what that was about, because it was in publishing, wasn't it?
That's right. Gosh, it's going back a long time. Well, I got into sales because I'd been working in marketing and in PR. Unfortunately, I suffered an injury and I was unable to use a computer. And I thought, well, what should I do? And I knew that I had a tremendous ability to run up enormous phone bills. And I then realised that you could get jobs in telesales and be paid for using other people's phone bills. And that's effectively what I did. So I actually started off in telesales. And then I moved on to working on some directories, selling space in directories, and then into magazines, into a magazine for independent financial advisors, and I was selling to insurance companies. I didn't know anything about that kind of finance before I joined that magazine, but there you go. I then moved into the world of, would you believe, institutional investment. And this is somebody who didn't even get their maths GCSE at school, but there you go. So I was selling advertising and sponsorship on an institutional, a trade magazine for the banking world. And then eventually I moved from that world of publishing to what was called real publishing, book publishing. And I moved to Usborne Publishing. They sell lovely children's books. And I did sales and marketing for them. That was the last thing I did before I changed to working in the not-for-profit sector. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. What would you say you most liked and most disliked, should we say, about your role at Usborne?
Oh, well, as I've already said, I'm very good at running up phone bills, but I also I love talking to people face to face. And in my job with Usborne, I did a lot of traveling around to the worst parts of the most beautiful cities in Europe, Paris, Milan, etc. And I used to have meetings where I was talking about how we were selling and marketing our books, and working with lots of different people, and I really, really enjoyed that. What I really disliked was going through reams and reams of Excel spreadsheets, trying to look through details of sales that our books had made. The sales themselves were interesting, but just there was so much information. Sometimes it just took hours to get through it all. And that's just, one bit of it that I didn't enjoy. There you are.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, great. And then to bring us a bit more to the current day, what made you decide to leave the world of sales and publishing, and how did you know what to go into next? How did you know what you wanted to do next?
Well, with me, it was a strange turnaround of events. I left my job in the publishing world in the beginning of January last year. I only started really looking for jobs in the February, and of course the pandemic was coming around, and it was becoming very difficult to look for jobs. At the same time, a friend of mine said, "Oh, Jilly, I wonder if you can help out. There's a local charity that's about to go bust, and I've told them they can't go bust. I know some people who can help you." And this was a music society who put on concerts locally. I got involved with this charity, and I became their trustee, one of their trustees. And I found that I got into lockdown, and of course it was very difficult to be looking for jobs because most people's jobs were frozen, lots of people were on furlough, etc., etc. And I spent a long time looking for jobs in publishing, but I felt myself bashing my head against a brick wall because there were so few jobs to go for. During the same time, I decided to try and do something useful with my time, and I took on other voluntary activities. So I did telephone befriending, and I delivered activity packs for people in MenCap. I did a variety of different things. I even did singing Hebrew songs over Zoom with my piano for people with learning disabilities. I found that I really enjoyed all of the charitable work that I was doing. And so eventually, after I'd been looking and publishing and thinking, this is not really getting very far, I started working with somebody who was actually training to become a coach. And we agreed that she would give me free coaching sessions because she was training. And I would talk about what I wanted to do, what I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And a very long story short is that I'd got to a stage where I'd done masses of traveling. I'd been to some amazing places, but I was quite exhausted of traveling. I'd done some wonderful things in the world of sales, but it was pretty pressurized. I wasn't brilliant with numbers, and that was something that always scared me. And I was thinking, well, what else can I do? And because I was so enjoying the work that I was doing with the different charities, such as being a trustee of this music society, I thought, I wonder what there is that I can do. And I thought, well, maybe fundraising. And then I started talking to people who were in this. A friend of my sister's, for example, had a long chat with me and told me about an experience she had. And then I started looking up the attributes you would need to do certain jobs in charity work. And I thought, well, fundraising, surely that's got to be similar to sales. And indeed it was. And so ultimately I decided, well, I really like this non-for-profit world. Why not get people to give money for something they really care about, as opposed to spending money to make someone else some profit? And so after quite a long period of time, that's what I decided to do. And I then started asking the charities that I was volunteering with, doing my telephone befriending, if I could actually do some voluntary fundraising for them so that I could get some experience of that. That was a rather long answer, but there you go.
That was great, actually, and you've even answered some of the other questions that I was going to ask.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. Right. It's really great. And actually, in the last session that Melanie took on Dinosaur to Dynamo, we spoke quite a bit at the end about volunteering, and obviously, you've kind of you've explained the importance of doing that volunteering, not only for you to get into it, but also to show that you're really invested in working in the charity sector. So no, that's great. And look, apart from the coaching that you had, and obviously the volunteering that you did, were there any other steps that you took? I mean, those are quite, that's quite a lot, but were there any other steps you took to make the transition into the charity sector? Any upskilling or anything else you did?
Yes, I did. Well, it's funny you talk about dinosaur to dynamo. Well, I won't tell anyone my age, but you can probably tell that I'm not 25. And what I was concerned about was that I was not brilliant with all forms of technology. And I also mentioned that I'm not brilliant with figures either. So what I did was, obviously I had a fair amount of free time. I was job hunting, which is the full-time job, as we all know, but I was also trying to do worthwhile things, because I thought I had recruited people myself. And I thought, if I was going to interview me after all this time, I'd be asking myself, what have you been doing to fill your time? What have you been doing that's really worthwhile? And I thought, upskilling, that's really important. So I went to my local Watford Women's Centre that does free training, free courses in a number of things, particularly things like English as a foreign language. I started off by doing, would you believe, a smart apps course with them, as in how to better use your mobile phone. May sound ridiculous, but there were some things I struggled to do. I then did a free maths course with them, which may sound mad, but I just wanted to kind of join up some of the dots that I felt were really weak in my memory. And then ultimately, they were doing technology courses, and I thought, brilliant. I had areas of weakness or things that I wasn't sure about, particularly in Excel, some things even in Word and other bits and pieces. And they were doing an information and communications technology course for which you could get a qualification. And I thought, bingo, I'm going to go for that. And I signed up for that and did it in September. It was a 3-month course from September last year. And, I'm so glad I did it, because I learned lots of bits and pieces that I would never have had the time or interest in learning before. And some of them I'm using now. And of course, I was able to put that onto my CV. And it's actually come up in interview on a number of occasions where people have said, are you familiar with this, this, and this? And I said, well, yes, I've actually got a qualification. And so that, yes, was a very, very useful thing to do. And I'm sure there are lots of places you could do courses like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much. So moving on then to your transition and your current job that you're doing. Tell us a bit about your current job.
Yes. So, well, as you can probably see, that poster behind me, I'm sitting in a room at Kisharon. Kisharon is an organisation, a charity, that looks after people with learning disabilities and autism. And I had actually been volunteering for them with my singing on a Thursday morning with some of the people that they support. And what happened was I was trying, as I've mentioned before, to get some fundraising experience with different charities that I was working with. And after a quite long time, the volunteers coordinator put me in touch with the fundraising director. I got involved with helping on a London Bridges Walk, a fundraising event they were doing in London in the summer. I was involved in getting people to come along to do the walking, and even getting some companies to supply free snacks and that kind of thing. And while I was doing it, one of the people I was working with said, did you know the chief executive needs an executive assistant? It may not be the kind of job that you're exactly looking for, but it also involves working with the director of fundraising, and the chief executive does an awful lot of major donor work, which was an area of charity work that I wanted to get into. And so eventually I applied for the job and I started working here in August. And so most of my work is indeed with the chief executive here of Kisharon. There's a lot of admin, but of course there's dealing with lots of different people, lots of different departments. And in fact, I was just in our fundraising team meeting this morning before coming on this call. So it's been a really brilliant opportunity to see and feel how a charity works. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And it's paid. It's a paid job.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think you mentioned it's coming to an end soon. It's a short-term contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are your next steps? What are your plans after this?
So well, I have already been applying for some other fundraising jobs, and thank goodness there are many more things being advertised now than there were a few months ago. And I know that Work Avenue have many more things on their job boards. So I'm looking for other fundraising jobs, but because I also need to be working and can't afford to be out of a job, if I don't find anything in fundraising, I may well turn to some of the previous sales skills I had, using my languages, if I need something to sort of keep me going. It really depends on how things go. What I'm coming up against, and maybe some of the people on this call may find this as well, is that I've been for interviews and people have said, oh, we really like you and you've got lots of good experience, but you don't have charity experience. And I could have whacked them round the head when they said that, but that can be an issue. And so that's why I'm trying to sort of look at a number of options, although fundraising is actually what I want to do, even though I know it's not an easy job.
Yeah, brilliant. But of course, with the voluntary work you've done, and obviously the paid job that you're doing now,
yes,
you won't need to whack them round the head. You can just tell them that you have now got experience. Okay, great. So
just frozen.
Oh,
now you're back. Now you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you know, bit of a loaded question here. So apologies everyone for this, but how would you say Work Avenue have helped you?
Oh goodness, Work Avenue have done masses for me. First of all, well, I knew Emma May. I'd met her many moons ago, and I got in touch with her because I had an idea that her organisation might be able to help me. I came in just before lockdown in March last year, and I met Melanie Pearl, and I had a long session with her talking about what I was looking for. This was long before I decided to change direction, and she helped me with my CV, and we talked about lots and lots of different things. And then, of course, we went into lockdown, and I watched masses of webinars that Work Avenue did. And you know what? Because I live on my own, it's just me, myself, and the cat. It was lovely to have that form of company in the daytime, let's say once a week or once a month. And what I found so brilliant about these webinars is that there were lots of people taking part, but the people who were doing the speaking were just normal people like you and me. And you could ask the most insane and stupid questions, and it didn't matter if they were insane and stupid. You'd get some really helpful answers. You could also link up with the people who were speaking on LinkedIn and talk to them afterwards and get more information from them. And I got loads and loads of really good insight from all these different webinars that I did. And they really kept me going through the different lockdowns, but gave me lots of ideas and inspiration, and also confidence in a way, because I was pretty scared that I wasn't going to find a job. And so having that support, having an advisor supporting you goes a hell of a long way when you're really not sure what the future holds. And goodness me, of course, through all the lockdowns last year, it was a pretty crazy time. So yes, long answer again, but it's Work Avenue have been tremendous for me, and they still are. Yeah.
Right, thanks very much for that, Jilly. I've just actually noticed a few minutes ago that Laura, our other speaker, has joined us. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming and joining us. Everything okay?
Thank you. Yes, all under control. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Richard.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So what I think I'll do is I'll ask Jilly one more sort of final question, and then we'll move on to you, Laura, if that's okay. Jilly, I guess, you know, just as a closing, what advice would you give to others on this session that are thinking of changing career? What would be your, let's say, top 3 tips?
First of all, try and talk to somebody who's already doing the kind of job that you want to do. And even if it's a stranger, don't be scared. You can get hold of people via LinkedIn. There are various ways you can do it, but try and ask people lots of questions to get an idea about what they do in their job. Another thing I would say is don't give up. Even if other people around you are saying, are you really sure you want to do that? Believe in what you want to do, even if you're unsure. And the other thing I would say is keep at it. It's a long road, but as various friends of mine said to me, it will eventually happen. And I hope it does so for you as well. There you are.
Great. Thank you very much, Jilly. That's
okay.
Really great. It's really very much appreciated. Okay, moving on to you, Laura, then. Thanks again for joining us. So, Laura, would you just very quickly before I throw a few questions out to you, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself to everyone, if that's okay?
Sure. Yes, sure. My name is Laura Granditer. I'm currently working for a charity called Light Up a Life, which is a winter volunteering campaign, which is a job that I started part-time in the summer. And it's gearing up to the campaign launch in December. And that's this is a new departure for me, and I think that's obviously what we're going to talk about. At the beginning of my career, I finally cracked the BBC after a couple of years of trying to get in to broadcast, and I got onto a BBC production training scheme, and from there I worked my way around the BBC as an assistant producer and director and researcher, and I had a really wonderful and enjoyable career making documentaries on different subjects, traveling around the world, meeting amazing people, working in a very creative industry with teams of other people, camera people and editors and so on. And I absolutely loved it. I worked for the BBC for about 15 years. I worked freelance. I made films for Channel 4 and ITV. I made small little educational films for the BBC. I made ridiculously popular documentaries about the death of Diana that was got the largest audience at the time for any documentary. It was made shortly after her death. I won awards for little films, and I've done lots of different things, and worked in different departments. So I was kind of used to picking up different subjects quite quickly and making something happen out of nothing, really, which is what I think the skills of a producer really are. When I got married and had kids, I decided that wasn't going to work with my BBC style career because TV is a very demanding business. And so I set up my own company at that stage, Immediate Films, and I made films for the educational sector and for the charity sector. And I absolutely loved it because I carried on making documentaries, but these were shorter documentaries. I was doing something in an industry that I felt needed to be, I suppose, reinvented. The charity video market at that time was really quite basic, and so I brought my broadcast skills into the charity sector rather than the other way around, which was often happening, where people would start in the charity filmmaking sector and move into broadcast. So I carved my way by making what I consider to be very different kinds of films, much more engaging films for charities, and used all the kind of skills that I gained as a documentary maker, and made these lovely films for different charities, both Jewish and non-Jewish, and had a really great time because I could control what I did and the amount of projects that I took on board. And And I was working with amazing organizations and again, meeting great people and doing something very creative. But I could do it on my own terms, which was very important with my 3 young children. And then I got to the stage, I think during lockdown, really. So I just felt like I had to make the change that I'd been thinking about for quite a long time. And I've been talking for ages about, I don't know, studying or learning something new or getting into a new area, and hadn't done very much about it. And I think lockdown kind of focused my mind really on actually getting on with doing something about it. And it was quite a difficult and quite an intimidating path actually, but managed to find the right kind of thing. But I won't carry on talking, Richard. If you want to ask me some questions, it might be more focused. I'm so sorry to have missed Jilly's conversation because I don't know what she said, and so I don't know what I can fill in or what I'm repeating.
I'll fill you in at a later date, but yeah, great. In fact, you have answered some of my questions there, because that was very well put, very well described, kind of how you've got up to this stage right now. So I guess you know, even though you'd say you transitioned into a new career recently and started thinking about it in lockdown, that really for many years now you've been thinking, well, you have been working in the charity sector. So was that something that sort of built over time? What made you decide in lockdown to make the change?
I think it was partly that I was doing a lot of voluntary work in lockdown. Coordinating local volunteers, doing a lot of social action work, as many people were, to be honest. At the beginning of the pandemic, I think everyone kind of kicked into gear and did different things. And I when I was thinking about this, I realized I've been volunteering for about 10 years, maybe more, maybe 15 years at my kids' school, on the PTA, for my local synagogue. I just was drawn to the world of social action and just kind of did it on the side. And then I felt that I didn't really want to do it on the side anymore, but actually I wanted that to be my work. And I wanted to get out of making films, which I still do, by the way. I love that I've got like a portfolio lifestyle at the moment. And I have recently made a film for a charity, but I'm really loving this current job working for a charity because the project is so interesting. It involves recruiting volunteers and matching them with organizations that need volunteers during the winter holidays, but it draws on loads of production skills, producer skills that I have and I really enjoy, and loads of the skills that I used when I was volunteering, both as chair of the PTA and for my local synagogue. These skills I use them all the time. I use them as a parent, to kind of manage everybody's lives. We've all got skills that we're so used to using that we don't even recognize them. So it seems like quite a natural move. And I know about the charity sector because I'd worked in it for a long time, but I worked in it from a slightly different angle. But the key for me actually was that I wanted to work in an office, because as a freelance filmmaker or production company, I do a lot of work on my kitchen table, and then I work with camera people or editors. So my hub is alone, and then I go out and work with other people and have meetings and so on. But I actually wanted to get out and work in the broader world and work in an office, and that is what I'm doing now, and I'm absolutely loving that. So that was probably one of the key differences actually, is that I managed to move my working environment, and that's been very important.
Okay, and have you found there's been any challenges with doing that?
Oh yes. Just using different computer programs and trying to problem solve, not really understanding some technology without appearing as if I'm a dinosaur. I don't really know how these things work. So I've had to learn a lot of new skills. Part of my job title is project and communications manager for this charity. So I'm dealing with social media. I'm learning that. I'm very confident with the content on social media, but I'm also now learning very quickly how to post and how to use social media in that way. I can make films very easily, but knowing how to link Facebook and Instagram is not so straightforward. So there's all of those kind of things that I'm learning. I'm learning how to use something called Canva, which is some kind of graphic design thing. And I'm using MailChimp and things that I probably had no idea about before. And there are some lovely supportive people in the office that are helping me, and I'm learning these new skills all the time, and that's a really valuable thing. So not that easy. I'm also learning how to work part-time and try and keep my working hours within the hours in which I'm paid, which is also a bit of a struggle in a way, because I'm used to just doing a project and working as many hours as I need to get the project done. That's what I've done for myself as a freelance filmmaker. But with this, I have to be a bit more kind of disciplined about when I'm working and when I'm not working. And that's also a bit of a learning curve as well.
Okay. That's great.
Learning loads.
Yeah. So obviously you've got this job, and I know we've spoken about this, but it's a fixed term contract, isn't it? I think same as Jilly, actually. It's finishing quite soon. What sort of plans have you got now for furthering? I mean, any thoughts about not staying in the charity world, going back to filming, or I mean, you briefly mentioned it, but what's your next sort of step? Are you going to build upon the skills that you've gained in this role and get another similar role, or?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't given it too much thought at the moment because I'm quite busy, to be honest. It's quite full on, but I'm kind of not afraid of kind of waiting and leaving. It doesn't matter if there's a bit of space between the end of this project and another one. I think the fact that I've got a job title really helps a lot, because then I can naturally gravitate towards other jobs of a similar description. I have, I would have recently completed a project with this job title, which is a great thing, actually. So I love working in the charity sector, and I'll definitely be looking around. But I'm also producing some events at the moment. There's another strand of my my working life, and that's also been a lot of fun. So, I might work within the digital event area, but I think seeing myself as a project manager is really helpful. And one thing that we talked about a while ago is that in the process of getting this job, I did a lot of interviews for other jobs, and it took me a long time to learn how to present myself in the interview as not a filmmaker, but as a project manager. I would end up by default talking about my experience in making films, and that wasn't the job title. And so I didn't get the jobs because I'm thinking, why is a filmmaker applying for this job? And it took me quite a long time to stop warbling on about filmmaking and to start talking about the more relevant experience and skills in terms of volunteering and other things that I'd done that demonstrated that I had the skills for the job, that didn't rely on what I'd done before. So I think I just feel a lot more confident about seeing, wonderful jobs and thinking, oh, that's interesting, and I can bring these recent experiences to that job and feel confident that I've got a fair playing field to get it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Laura. I think what we'll do now is, I mean, we have had a question for you, Laura, so maybe I'll start with that, and then any other questions that anyone's got, if you want to put them on the chat, or once the question's been answered, maybe unmute yourself and feel free to ask it. Emma, was this one you've put on the chat, is that the one that you wanted to ask, or is it a different one?
It's actually a question someone that actually came from Jilly, funnily enough. But Jilly just, it is a very, very good question. I don't know, when the whole subject of changing your career at a midpoint in it is really centers around that upskilling thing, and the fact that we come with skills and experiences, but what about those that we need to grow more of, that we just need to know more about, and particularly those of us who are thinking of changing career at a midpoint in, social media is the one that comes up over and over again, and the question was, how did you address the sort of the concept of upskilling, Laura, specifically in the field of social media? What did you do?
There are lots of short courses that you can take, but I was actually connected to an organisation. I was doing some voluntary work for Wills and Jewish Cemetery, and was part of a heritage organisation. I joined a heritage organisation, and they offered lots of short courses or hour workshops or whatever on how they were using social media. So I dropped into those and kind of understood a bit more about the language of social media, which is really different from the language that I'm used to making films. It's very short and you have to think more laterally about what it is that you're showing. So that was really helpful in terms of confidence building. There are loads of short courses and loads of stuff on YouTube. But I'm also very happy to bring in experts and pay them for an hour of their time. Or there are other companies that do short analysis of social media, you know, they're not terribly expensive, but are worth doing. So I'm happy to kind of find experts who literally come to me and show me on my phone, do this, do this, do this. And that's really helpful. And I'm just watching different things on YouTube and using my phone to look at other social media channels and offerings. And it's, you know, it's a massive learning curve because we grew up in a different time. You know, it's very generous to think that this is a midlife career change. I think that I'm possibly further on than midlife in terms of my career.
There are many people on the call that could be at every stage of their career change, but you're right. Yes.
Not at my midlife of my career. I've been working for a long time in broadcast, and I don't know how long I'll be working for. Hopefully, it's a long time, but it's not every job requires social media knowledge and understanding. Mine does, obviously. But I think if you just want to get to know about it, I think that YouTube videos really help, and just watch things and talk to other people. I talk to my kids about, you know, what are you doing? What are you watching? How do you access that? And if I get lost, it's like, fix this, do this for me. So, you know, anyone around you can help. Anyone around you who is younger can help you to navigate that world. And as I say, there are so many short courses, workshops, 1 hour demos and 10-minute YouTube films on it that actually you can pick up quite a lot. And I think,
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I also think that volunteering for organisations is also really helpful because you pick up from other people that you're volunteering with, or, you know, people are very grateful for whatever you do. So it doesn't really matter what you're able to deliver on some level. So there's lots of ways of accessing it, but I'm still very much on a very steep learning curve.
It's very interesting because listening to what you have said and what Jilly has said, and also what other of our other people who've been presenting in other sessions and other people that we've known through other events have said, there are overt themes that come through and there are also covert themes that come through. And there is a lot of overt, you know, take courses, go online, see things, volunteer, talk to people. These are the things that the themes that for the upskilling that come up over and over again. What's not said, but what is absolutely apparent from what everyone does say, is this concept of kind of, and I'm going to say it nicely and perhaps a little less nicely. And the nice way is, you know, getting over your fear, because there is a massive fear factor of the unknown, of things that we don't know. And then the less nice way of saying it is getting over yourself. You know, actually, you know, putting ourselves in a position of some degree of vulnerability because we're putting ourselves into a field of lack of knowledge and where we have to grow our knowledge. And that in itself makes us feel vulnerable. We like to stay in a position, all of us humans, we like to stay in a place of security where we feel we know where we are and how things work and what they do. But what you've done, Jilly, and what you've done, Laura, and it's quite apparent that other people have done it as well, is that they have been brave. They've actually taken brave steps and they've stepped outside of their comfort zone and therefore exposed them and therefore made themselves feel vulnerable. But you've worked through that. Is that fair?
It's fair.
Well, I think that the whole nature of my working life has been to changing and doing new things. That's the nature of the kind of the short projects that I've worked on. So I'm used to putting myself in kind of slightly uncomfortable positions. That's part of the thrill of it for me. So I don't mind looking like I don't really know what I'm doing. It doesn't bother me very much. Obviously, I don't want to look unprofessional. But I think if you say that, you know, you've got certain skills, you don't know all the skills that may be required for the job. And if you say that up front, but you don't know how to do this, but you're very happy to learn, or you're not afraid of technology, but you don't know how this bit works. I think that that's fine. And I happen to work in an incredibly supportive office environment at the moment. And so I'm not, it's not a problem to ask a colleague to show me something and to learn it that way. But I think no one knows how to do everything for sure at any age or stage. And I think people are willing to help out if they can see that you're not that confident with something. But sorry, just want to say, at our age and stage, we all have like tons of skills and tons of understanding of the world and knowledge and intuition and ability to read people and situations that is really valuable in the workspace. And I think also I probably speak for our age group that we're really reliable and usually on time and responsible and all of those other things. And actually, from what I understand, people who are much younger don't necessarily have all of those skills in such an obvious way, all those kind of disciplines, if you like, in such an obvious way, and treat work and the work environment slightly differently and more casually in a way, and with less commitment often. So don't underestimate what we bring as more experienced people in the workplace as well. These are not skills that you'll ever see on a job description, but we have them, and and they're to be valued.
100% agree. It is absolutely what we tell clients over and over again, Laura.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
it's almost like you were in the last session that Mel delivered, because that was one of the central themes running through what Mel was saying. And another thing, obviously, Emma briefly mentioned it, but another thing that is common amongst all people that change career is activity. That you almost can't change career unless you've got lots of activity. You're doing lots of things to promote that, whether it's, as we've said many times, volunteering, upskilling, all that kind of stuff. So it's very impressive to see how much activity, how much effort you've both put in. And obviously I've spoken to you, Laura, over the many months. I haven't spoken as much to Jilly. I know you have with my colleagues, but very, very apparent that you've both are very active people, and I think that's one definite takeaway to people looking to change career.
Can I pop in with a random question? Are there any, for doing trainings and things, are there any government grants to pay for trainings or to send us on that you could perhaps advise us for the even slightly older applicants as well? But just like, in terms of, I go on all your trainings, I do other trainings, but as I always say to you, if I learn one thing, it's cool. So I just wondered if you had any list of grants that we can apply for as independent people.
I mean, if you I know we've had an appointment before, Karen, and you probably have with other advisors, but there are so many resources out there for people to upskill, to train. If it's a much longer course and you're looking for a grant to do something specific, we do have the RMBF Richard Mintz Bursary Fund. Details of that you can find on our website. You can drop me an email and I'll talk you through it. Yes, there are more and more things out there. I think it's just about knowing how to tap into it, where to find it. And obviously we can have a chat about that if there's anything specific. It goes for everyone as well. Feel free to book an appointment with an advisor to talk through any of the things we've been talking about today. Okay, we've still got a few minutes left before the end of the session. If anyone else has a question they'd like to ask to Jilly or Laura.
I have a question, if that's
okay. Great.
And it's addressed to either stroke both Jilly and Laura. You've both spoken so fluently and so eloquently this morning about how you have turned your hand and forged a new pathway for yourselves. How did you get? There must have been days for either of you, or I'm perhaps generalizing, but there must have been days where you felt down, you felt despondent, or panicky, or scared. How did you dig deep within yourself to cope with those days? I don't know who wants to answer first. Maybe this wasn't something that applied to you. I don't know.
No, it did 100%, and
Yeah.
I'd be sorry to give the impression that it was just plain
Oh
sailing.
no, please don't
It really
apologize.
wasn't.
It's yes.
No, it really wasn't. I did, I was kind of, the interviews that I didn't get, that I was overqualified for, was like, really, what was that about? And I realized my mistakes, and in terms of what I chose to talk about, and it was like, how could I do that? It was obvious what they wanted, and I didn't do my research properly, and all of those things. So I kind of, they hurt, the interviews that I didn't get. I think, just getting into the broadcast industry required quite a lot of persistence right at the beginning of my career. I did some rubbish jobs, and I worked hard, and I didn't have an easy way in. I didn't have any other way than the routes in, and they were very competitive. So I think that I've always been used to being quite, not resilient exactly, but persistent. I think they're different. And I think I'm doggedly persistent. And I've had to be as a freelancer as well in broadcasting. It's like you get knocked back, and you have to apply again, and you have to not mind being rejected, and you have to not take it personally, and you have to realize that other people just have maybe a better skill set for that job than you do, because you're slightly coming sideways at it, and you don't know what they're looking for, and it may not be you, and that's okay. So I think not taking it personally is really important, because it isn't, it's a piece of paper. This is one person, this is another person. So the choices that people make are based on their own preferences, and not on necessarily on how well you did. So I think that's probably really important. It's not personal. It's about the matching of the skill set in a lot of ways. And also, I just want to say, just to kind of, again, to encourage people who are looking to shift their working life. I mean, I said, as I said to Richard, this is about applying transferable skills rather than in reinventing oneself. I didn't reinvent myself. I just moved a bit sideways, but we've all accumulated so many skills that often they don't have names to them. But actually, at our life stage, we know loads of stuff. And it's being able to articulate what those skills are that is really, really important. I'm writing a list of what you can do. Even if you think loads of other people can do it, maybe they can't actually. And so you have particular skills that are worth celebrating and talking about in interview. I'm all for people just kind of recognizing the values that they come with, and the value that they have inherently. And if you get knocked back, it's not about you. You just got to keep going.
Right. We've only got a couple of minutes left before we close this and go on to the last session of the morning. But Jilly, did you have any one point on Emma's question?
Oh, crikey. I certainly felt low. I certainly found it really difficult. Thank goodness the sun was shining last year. And thank goodness that I enjoyed going out on my bike and doing cooking and various bits and pieces. But one thing I did do, apart from the old adage, feel the fear and do it anyway, which some of us just have to do. A lot of the time I kept thinking, am I really doing the right thing? Am I bonkers? Is this really, really going to work? And what I kept doing was I would go onto Indeed or whatever job site it was, and I would search for other jobs just to see if I really thought I was doing the right thing. And then things would come up and it would just make my stomach turn. I thought, God, I just don't want to do that. So then I would go back and look at the jobs that I wanted to look for again. And in my case, I've taken a huge drop in salary. I'm working effectively as a PA, whereas before I was a director. So, it's a very, very big change. But it's
sorry, Jilly. I'm just going to cut in. Only sorry to be rude. Only because of conscious of time. But I just want to extend my thanks to Jilly and Laura. Thank you so much for coming on. We're so appreciative, and it's been really, really helpful. I'm going to close this session now, but we've got the final session coming up, which is the last half an hour, which is a Q&A with the Work Avenue team. So I look forward to seeing you all on that. And thank you so much once again. Really, really great session. Thank you. All the best, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.